What's up, Vanguardians? This is Jonathan S.P. Mindham. I am doing another word from the Butler, kind of giving you also recap of the national competition that took place here in Chicago. I was very happy to have had a small part in that. For those of you who don't know, this past weekend was the national championship here in Chicago, as we always did, and it was really exciting because there was a lot of great players and things present at this event, and I'm really sad not to see a few more players. I mean, like, when you're at this stage in the game, I know it's tough not to be sponsored by Butler Road, but I mean, like, the effort I feel sometimes that can be made for those who get invites should be a little bit more. I mean, it's such a small setting for those amount of people. Everyone has a great chance of taking it and winning and doing a great job. I think anyone who went, congratulations for even making it. But those who even remotely got to the top 8, top 4, even better. Congratulations again. There was just so many interesting things going on at the event. For those who don't know, Dr. O was there signing autographs and doing Gunslinger. Brandon Smith was there doing Gunslinger. I forget her name. Not to be rude, I wasn't overly impressed with her. It was one of the artists that drew the cards for, I think, Top Auto Pacifica, somewhere in there. She was really cute and funny, I think, at times, but she was signing cards and doing Gunslinger as well for Wise and for Vanguard as well. But the overall event was very fun. Not a whole lot of additional people showed up. I saw a lot of Chicagoland natives and things like that show up, but I really wish Bushiroad would do something going forward where they make this a bigger event. Make it so people want to go to this. I mean, there were some great names and things there, but it's like, again, like, if you're traveling at this bad time of the year with weather and things, and you're sitting here going, you know, do I want to risk my life traveling to Chicago, or do I want to, stay at home and stay comfy and not really, you're not really getting anything additional, which is not a shame that you can't get anything additional, but, you know, your whole purpose of going is trying to, you know, if you're not going to be in the championship, give you a reason to go there. And I think they do a wonderful job hosting the event. I think they did a wonderful job putting the event together. But when it comes down to it, they need to do something that draws people there. And I don't know how it works in the previous championships and things like that. So how they did that. But again, when you're in California, you got a ton more people who are willing to go there and do things. And I don't know if Chicago will host it next year, which I hope they do, just for the sheer fact, it's kind of like a central location. You got the East Coast that can come there, the West Coast, it's a little bit cheaper and things. When you keep sending everyone to the West Coast, a little bit harder to do that. But overall, the event was very successful. I think we had 13 tables, so that's 26 people for Vanguard. They had just a little bit under that for Wise and for Buddy Fight as well. It was really a lot of fun meeting a lot of great peoples, and like I had a great time getting to kind of know some people, asking where they were from, and the most interesting player of all, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was this little 9-year-old girl there who qualified in Vancouver or whatever, and she was playing Shadow Palette in Abyss and was just wrecking people. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm so excited for the state of this game going forward. That, again, a 9-year-old made it to the championship. And overall, she took 9th place. Just missed being in the top 8 by a hair. I mean, could you imagine if she would have made it? Like, I mean, I'll get a little bit more into that a little bit in the video. I just thought it was just an amazing accomplishment. And that little girl, Caitlin, I believe her name is, deserves a huge round of applause from the community and really making this a children's card game. So I'm definitely really excited, and congrats to her. And again, I'll get into that stuff later. Overall for the event, I was made or asked, or I don't even know how they do it, sub-head judge for the event. And the way that works is there's JD, which we all know and love. He is our Bushiroad representative to the community. But he was tournament or head judge for all 3 games. And then they made sub-head judges. So Christian Larson was sub-head judge for Buddy Fight. Phil Tam was for Wise, and I was for Vanguard. Vanguard was 4 rounds, best 2 out of 3. Best 2 out of 3! Yes, you heard those words from my mouth. This is something I really hope that they see and want to go forward with instead of that best of one. And the thing that, I think what gets me and why they do the best of one and seeing it now, because when you're doing it best 2 out of 3, it was 50-minute rounds. It is very time consuming. Very time consuming. And we did have a couple matches go to draw time still in 50 minutes. Some matches not so much. But it was really interesting that they did that for the championship. I'm glad, because it made it worthwhile for the people who do go, that you're not grade lock one game and then you're out. Hopefully, I say this, I can't even say this is a route they'll just go with in general. But I understand to see why they do best out of one. It does take a while. There's a lot of people who show up to these events. There are not a whole lot of other national championships and things, or national events for Buddy Fight, or Vanguard, for any other games actually, that go across country. There's just them, and there's other things that pick up here and there, and I'll get to that in a little bit later. I'm going to talk about ARG, but it's just one of those things where I really hope down the line we can get the best 2 out of 3. It was successful for the Vanguard event. I think it was definitely needed for the Vanguard event. It just felt right for the Vanguard event. So all the other games, I think Wise was best of 1, Buddy Fight was best 2 out of 3, but that's expected. That's how the game plays. Myself had a great day with the judging. It was, I think there was no major issues, no ruling on Legion that was super crazy. My biggest thing, and I said this 1,000 times, this is a level 3 or ALC, I can't even remember now, championship level tournament. So standing and drawing is a must. Drive checking revealing resolution is a must. And there was later, it was a guarding issue, which I didn't understand at the time, and now I did. And after later, it was just a very long day. A lot of fatigue was setting in. No breaks were really out there. But overall, what was people were not standing and drawing, and people were not resolving their drive checks. And again, at this stage in the game, this point where you're the champions of champions from your regions, your selective areas, you should be standing and drawing. And I know, and there's people who probably watch this video and go, oh, in my locals, we don't do that. And there's probably people going, oh, they didn't make me do that at my regional. Well, let me tell you something. You're at the national championship. This is the place where you have to be the best. I use more red ink on Sunday than I think I've done ever, for anything. And I've been judged a few times now. I've done it for locals. I've done it for KOC Cup, which, if you don't know, is King of Card Fight. I will definitely be doing it at ARG. You stand and draw and resolve your drive checks. Follow the show. Where in the game ruling does it say become a lazy card player? Drives me bonkers. And I know people are nervous, but it's just one of those things where it's come on, just do it correctly. But I had to, we were doing it in the finals. It's just, come on. So I think that was my most shocking judging experience for the whole thing. And going forward, JD was saying they're going to take and really develop the judging program and really get people up to par with it, so that way things like this happen nationally. So people start picking up on it and start going, okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what, this is how you play properly. I know all the time you hear people on the Facebook groups and things like that, and I never pretend to be Mr. Know-It-All or always right, and I always see people who say, oh, I judge for Bushiroad, I know everything. No. There's a lot that, again, the comprehension things, yes, Bushiroad has Vanguard as a simpler game of theirs, but it's just, it really drives me crazy when people just don't know the rules or pretend to know all the rules, and then, the simplest ruling comes up and they have no clue. And I'm really hoping they're developing this program to be effective, and so next year going forward, all people who are participating in their events can give one clear rule across the board. That's the goal. So I definitely will be thanking JD and Justin and the Bushiroad staff for allowing me to have such a wonderful part in this. this national championship, and it was very much an honor to do it, and I want them to know that. So going forward, next thing I want to talk about is decks. What we saw, what was unique. Obviously, Shadow Paladins took it, and nothing against the Shadow Paladin players. I just it got boring after a while, watching Shadows just dominate. There was variety though. I just feel like when you talk about variety, if you're not Legion yesterday, it couldn't keep up, and that was the thing. Like your Legion decks are able to shuffle heals back in and shuffle their triggers back in. There was the thing where I think some decks were just losing so much steam, they couldn't keep up in that late game format because all they had to do is keep re-legioning, and the only other Legion decks there were Genesis. Now, my problem with the Genesis decks were I just don't think the builds were that good. I mean, I'm sitting here watching them and going, okay, why? Go for game and kill and cutthroat. Some of them were I don't know. I got in this argument with Tommy Allen about how builds are being, and I'm like, guys, no one, when you're going up against and the meta of Shadow Paladins, retire as much shit as possible. Make them drop their hand. Make them do as much stupid shit as possible. Outplay them. It's not about necessarily winning. I mean, yes, going for that kill, and when you do the effect of the Genesis Legion, which is Soul Blast 6, and you get a crit and they can't guard with guard 1s. There's still ways around that. I mean, yeah, you can do all these things, but it's you gotta go for that. I feel like all the combos, and they weren't doing that. And I think there was only 2 or 3 Genesis decks. There was a couple of Kagero, Transcendence, nothing Rebirth as far as I could see. I was always just making sure you had the grade 4 and making sure you were doing things. But even then, that deck was losing steam against a, Quintet Walls. I mean, it kind of was out metaed in many ways, which, okay, during June and all that it was, but it's just we talked about this in the live stream the other day. It's just not one of those decks I really expected to do overly well, but overall it was expected to see. And it, again, didn't even make top 15 people, as far as I could tell. Then there was one Pale Moon player. Really happy to see that. It was actually doing really, really well. Stands and crits and, restanding his rear guards and things like that. So it was definitely one of those things where it was very nice to see that. There was one Aqua Force, who's a local guy, Eric Hernandez. Had a hard time again. I think loses steam, and the deck does draw a lot, but if you're only hitting for so much and you can't do so much, Legion meta is so different from 13k meta. It's really hard, and I really wish Bushiroad would have said, you know what, extra boosters 11 to 12 can't be used, because no one got to this point with Legion, so allowing that to be used in the top championship I think was a little unfair if you weren't running a Legion deck. And the only really ones you could run were Shadow Paladins and Genesis. You can talk about Narcomin, you can talk about Seekers, Royals, but they don't have the synergy that they will in a few months, or a month or so. So it was really just one of those, I think, again, if you weren't running Shadows, you weren't going to win. And I hate saying it like that, but we talked about this in the live stream. It was just too good of a deck. They deck thin, they hit for triggers because of that, and eventually it all putting cards back in and allowing with Dorant on counterblast and to constantly being able to re-Legion and to constantly be able to do that. It's just too good of a deck right now. Will it be meta come set 16? It will be the meta with a couple other things. Next year, no. I don't expect it to be overly dominant. Is it still going to be one of the best decks for the next couple months? Yes. It will be the next best deck for a couple months, for sure. It very much is a great deck. Then other decks, there was one Nova Grappler deck. He was using V Mundy's build. I was happy to see the variety there. There was Aquaforce, like I said. There's Pale Moon, a couple Kakaro. I think that's it. I think that was really Link Joker, and all Link Joker was Glendios. And the thing with that deck again, like I said, like that thing runs out of steam after a while. Like if you're not when you're playing Shadow Paladins who retire their units and get an effect, and then they're dropping their hand, it's just too much for any deck to take on unless you are a Shadow Paladin deck or another Legion-based deck that can keep up with it. So, again, my biggest disappointment was the Genesis builds and decks. I really just wish they would have done a little bit better. Just a little bit. I would have been I'd love to have seen one make the top 8 because I feel like they deserve it. I do say Shadows, and I do want to correct. There was one Shadow Paladin player who made it that wasn't running Abyss. I think it was Justin Eric, maybe. I can't remember. I never really got to meet a whole lot of people because you're on company time kind of thing. But he was playing Shadow Paladins. I didn't really see his deck too much, obviously, than the classic witches. You run everything witches in that. And you go for it. I think there's also some Neemans. Very good player. I think, to get where he was, it was very well done. But again, when you're playing Shadow Paladins and they call Shadow Paladin triggers and all they have to do is just retire them and then the next turn Legion them back in, that deck is at a disadvantage right there because it's not like a normal deck where you call those units, you have to call over them, and then you really, you could just keep those on the field and you get your requirement. Like, it's just, it's kind of a little BS, it's just, they needed more Legion stuff to come out right now to keep up with that. And then, I was talking about the rules and like how people weren't staying and drawing. I mean, I had to give some game losses for that. And the little girl, Caitlin, I had to give her a game loss. I felt like such a monster giving a little girl, and she didn't understand at first. I'm like, you stand and draw. Like, think of the show. Like, think of how they do it in the show. Like, that's a huge thing is the stand, draw. And resolve your jive checks. People were going, crit, next trigger, draw. Like, okay, I'm fine. Drive check, trigger, turn back, drive check, not a trigger. So anywho, yeah, that was my biggest things, and we had to give a couple of game losses in the championship to these things. Not round losses, not match loss, like just a couple of game losses, and deck registrations were fine. There was only a couple of things that were screwed up with that, which was interesting. Still at this point didn't cause any super problems. I think that really sums up the event. I mean, like, I know people ask for deck lists and things. I'm like, okay, it's Abyss. Okay, let's talk about this. There was no Abyss Raging form. Number one, there was none. I don't know why. I think that deck is too good. In its own right, and I understand people are like, oh, Judge Power, oh, get me a Judge Power, and when it hits, I get to put it into Sword and call 2 units. When you're playing Shadow Paladins, and you're playing against Shadow Paladins, Judge Power is not a factor anymore, okay? Abyss Revenger, retire, go on. The whole strategy around Judge Power, I'm surprised no one thought of that. I'm really just so, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, why did no one run like just Creeping Darkcoat with Drag Ruler or with a Raging form and just you mean like anywho, so there was a lot of Moldred Phantom. I think the few decks that did win in the top 3 had one Moldred Phantom teched in or the Cross Ride, and then they had the rest was Phantom the Break Ride. Or Charmic, which I don't think the top decks won with Charmic at all. They ran the Mate, the grade 2, but they didn't run the grade 3. Again, it was all about that Phantom. It was all about having the Phantom. So yeah, I mean, with little variety. I know my friend Gage, who made it to 10th place, was running Macchot, whatever his name is, the other Legion, that when you retire a unit gets a crit. Okay. Good deck. I just don't think it was the greatest deck. You go up against those Phantom decks, but again, when you're going Phantom and you have Judge Bao as your starter, like someone should have tried running Creeping Darkcoat and Raging for it, because I think that's the better way to go. So, that sums up what I have. Unless you guys have other questions, I really feel the event was solid. I feel like the guys who won were very talented. The guy who came in first place, Carlos, he was the most trigger happy guy I've ever seen. The biggest oh my god moment though, like where I just think everyone flipped their shit, was third place match versus the third and fourth place champion. We're trying to figure out, and again, whoever won first, second, and third all got sponsored by Bushiroad to go to Japan. Third place was my local boy, Kevin Cho, who was a friend of mine. He got third place, but what it came down to was they were 1-1 in matches, and it came down to the other Shadow Paladin drove check a crit and hit it, and Cho was at 5 damage. Damage 1, heal trigger. Needed another one. Damage 2 was a heal trigger. Flipped out. One guy threw his phone. It was the most oh my god moment of the day. Like, it was just like, oh my god, like, he got the trigger. I mean, it really made a world of difference when determining going to Japan or not. I mean, that was the moment. Like, that was like, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next? Like, that was the moment that separated everything. It really changed the course of the whole thing for him, and really put him back in the game, and it was just an oh my god moment. It was a great moment, and Kevin, I mean, again, you don't control that, but Kevin just played, wonderfully, and I'm really glad he got that trigger. And no offense to his opponent, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, luck was on his side, so really glad and happy for him on that one. So, but I asked for everyone a couple of questions and asking about some stuff going forward, like I've been trying to do. And I'm going to try to answer as much of these as possible. I already know I've been talking, but again, this is a little extra special word from the Butler. From Chris James Colta, is the stream happening this week? No, stream will be happening next week. I will announce a couple of the guests and things, but I will be having V Monday, Alice White on the show. Trying to explain your deck profile. Justin Morrison asked that. Justin, I was not playing. I was the subhead judge for the event. I don't have anything really to go off of that. Thomas Sharp, I'd like to know the different grade 3 lineups for the Abyss and how they did. Like I said, you saw mostly Phantom and Abyss with one Moldred. Each deck, I think, the top had one Moldred, the Crossride. How good are the Nova Grapplers with the new Stride coming out? I think the Novas have the best Stride unit, simply because the ability to restand with that much power, and everyone's like, oh, okay, but still, you're striding with so much power. Like, unless you have 2 perfect guards, and all those units stand back up, the combos are just ridiculous. It's definitely going to be a deck worth playing and looking into if you want, like, what's going to be the best Legion deck, because until Shadows come out with a reign of dominance to continue, I just see that being, like, the deck right now. Going forward in the meta. The ability to restand, huge numbers, possible triggers, too good. What didn't you like drawing into aggressiveness? Again, I wasn't playing, guys. I don't know. I could tell you for right now, like, I know people were happy to get Dorrance, allowed them to counterblast, to constantly be re-regioning, and to get the counterblast for the Shadow Paladin and Abyss players. So definitely Doran is a 4 of in that deck. How was meeting the infamous Doctor Who? It was amazing. It was otastic. It was orgasmic. It was really fun. When you meet a celebrity of that nature who, in their culture, Japan's, is really big. I mean, he does a lot. One thing I wanted to do is find someone who spoke Japanese and be like, tell me about the Neo-Nectar support that's coming out. Like, that was the extent. I'm really happy I got to take a photo with my team. It was, someone, again, of that nature where I feel like only the people on the West Coast can see it and do with it if he's ever there. I mean, I'm really happy they broke out of the whole California mold. I'm really happy they did that, and they brought these celebrities here. So, definitely someone fun to meet, and I really hope he can come and do more stuff. Did the top 8 decks really have 7 Revengers? Yes, but 1 was Witches, so remember that. So it was 6 Revengers, 1 Witch, 1 Link Joker, which was Glendios. Neil McDonald, did you have a fun time? I had a great time. Again, I had a really bad week. I was in the hospital for a day, Thursday, took off Friday, and it was really nice to end this weekend. I went to Pokemon on Saturday trying to being hopefully recovered. When I say Pokemon, I don't mean the video game. And got my ass whooped, and I was really out of it. And I'm like, oh, I really, really need this weekend. And it was fun to go to Vanguard and have that fun. Did you meet Schimmel, Brandon Schimmel? I did. I got to talk to him just for a little bit. Me and Brandon had met before. I don't know how well he did in Buddy Fight, but I was not judging. Really didn't pay too much attention to it. So, did you have a rad after party? Sadly, no. No after party. It was raining. Like the city was doing their mile lighting of the mile. Just it was a hard time, and we didn't get out there till late. Like Vanguard ran much longer than the Buddy Fight and Wise. Like it was going on for like an extra couple hours. So it was really time consuming, and by the end of it, we're all very fatigued and tired. And it was just one of those things where, you know, if you've ever judged these events, a lot of pressure is on you to make sure you're doing the right calls. So just saying. Next. All right, you'll see a splice here for whatever reason. The second part of, or not second part, the video ending did not, for whatever reason, work. So I don't know if I clicked it or what, so I'm going to finish up with some of the final questions. So much easier than me going all the way back through and redoing all that. So I just want to continue forward going on there. And there's only a couple more questions, so I really... So sorry for doing this. There was a question on Continentals. What are your thoughts on upcoming Legion and Stride effects coming out next year? I think the biggest thing with like Legion is definitely going to be older decks are going to have a hard time competing with it just because the effect that you can do Legion whenever, as long as your opponent and you are on grade 3, so there's no need for a limit break anymore, which is really nice. Maybe one day they'll make like a limit break for Legion. But Stride is really interesting. Stride going forward, I'm going to be testing that in area soon, probably with OTT, just because that's the clan I connect with right now to set Generation Booster 1 until OTT comes out. Popular decks, I definitely think you're going to see Nova Grappler. I definitely think Gear Chronicles might be played just because of the fanboys again. Everyone sits there and goes, oh, they're not that great and not that wonderful. So we'll see. I'm pretty optimistic. I think going forward, there's a lot of stuff that we will be able to do and with new mechanics. I think it changes a lot in that respect. I think popular decks you're going to see next year, and they did announce too, and I don't know if anyone knew this yet or said they will be a team league going forward. So if we expect the spring-summer concept like they've done, you know, when we look at what we know what's going to be released, I think you're going to see a lot of those decks be very popular. Doge, I think they did the right thing releasing it in January. Keep it away from everything else, because eventually the whole meta will become Kagero and Shadow Paladins and Abyss, or Seekers. No one ever wants to play. All of these decks are good. Like, here's the thing. People just don't realize it. They're just literally only wanting to play absolutely what wins. Like, not even just, like, having fun with it. And then you hear those people like, I like Shadow Paladins before Shadow Paladins were Shadow Paladins. Like, really? You played in set 4 when also set 5 was out? Like, did you really play PBO at Nationals? Or did you really play PBO at Team League? Because I don't think so. You played what won. Everyone plays what wins, and there is this unique thing where I think what we saw pre-Legion, when you look at when Set 15 came out, there were so many decks, so many great decks that are still viable, and people were playing variety. Like, that's an awesome thing, and I just feel like hopefully 16, 17, it is such a mix that we will see a good variety of things. But the problem is it won't be a variety at a time that matters. Like, we're going to be in January, December, or December, January. There's no big tournaments going on. ARG, like I said, is going to be coming out here at the end of November, so we're still going to see very much Legion-based decks played at these events, and that's sad because people should play more of a variety. Like, the game is 50% luck. Like, like just play what you have fun with, and play, you know, obviously the things that I think what you just feel would be different for you. Like, That's all I really have to say on that matter. So, and as far as questions, really comes down to it, guys. I think that's it. I think I'm going to answer all those questions for right now. If you have any more questions, feel free to let me know. Christmas tournament starting up in a few weeks. We're going to finish top 4 of the Vanguard Mania. I had to put that on break because of being sick and everything in Worlds. It just was easier just to start it this week. So, again, thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe, ask questions. I will try. We're going to be doing a live stream, like I said, hopefully next week. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you guys very soon.